I talked about it with all the stuff that Brad showed, the stuff that you talked about, but it's the concept of group consciousness. Now, we don't need to see a show of hands, but I'm assuming that somebody in this room has been to some kind of a 12-step meeting at once in their life, right? A couple of you? Well, in the 12-step meetings, they always make decisions by group consciousness. That's the term they use. What's the group want? And a lot of times, we don't have a sense of group consciousness, which, in my opinion, is why this gathering is so important. This really is a group with a conscience that is trying to do something for the world. But the group consciousness thing that exists regardless. Whether you direct it someplace or whether you don't direct it someplace, we are all part of several group consciousnesses. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm the last person in the world that should be leading this discussion, and I'll tell you why. When we talked about be the change you want to see in the world, I got that part. But I'm also the change I used to be. And when I look out on some of the things that are happening, I want to go back to who I used to be and start saying, wait a minute, you guys can't do this. Who in the hell nominated Franklin Graham to tell us that Barack Obama is a Muslim? Is that crazy? And it's so, yes, that happened this week. On a CNN interview, Franklin Graham was explaining how Barack Obama is a Muslim, and he's a Muslim because the Muslim seed came from his father to him, and he cannot escape. It's just crazy. It's insane. But the temptation to get into that consciousness is constantly in our media, in our faces, and it makes it hard to be the change that we would like to see. It's a temptation. It's a real temptation. Now, the reason I bring that up is because Karen really works with me all the time on this. She keeps me from going to that place most of the time. Because it's real easy for me to get back into the 60s and saying, let's stop the war. Let's stop the craziness. And the fact of the matter is, and we all know this, as we look around at what's going on, there is a certain level of craziness that simply has to happen so that the stuff that isn't working becomes completely apparent to everybody. This doesn't work. Whether it's politics or whether the Pope says that ordaining women is a sin on par with pedophilia, or whether the people in the finance places, they have what's called the plutocracy now, which means that the rich are supposed to get richer and that's the way it's supposed to work because they make the best decisions, or whether it's the Defense Department trimming its budget just a little bit, and at the same time the increase in the budget is with drones and robots and the top secret government. Do you know that there are 850,000 top secret clearances in our government right now? These are top secret people that know top secret stuff. And we are building a $3.4 billion in Anacostia, Virginia, to house the Homeland Security, top security surveillance system that we're building. We didn't want to hear that, but I mean, that's what's happening. So this stuff has to fall apart. And the temptation to get involved in, you can tell when I say these things that I'm attracted to learning about these things, although it's the opposite way that I want to go and that I want anybody else to go. But this is part of what's happening right now. This is the part where chaos comes together. Now, the reason I say that is this. As a group, this is I didn't realize when we started this, when we got to this house, I didn't realize what this was going to be. Mm-hmm. But every time we get together now, I realize it's an algorithmic increase. That we are somehow or another creating something right in this room that's going to stretch across this, what do they call it, what do they call Austin, the
Violet crown.
the violet crown. So somehow or another we're creating something that's going to go around the world. And it's not just us, it's happening all over the world. And we're somehow or another going to be able to connect with these people that nobody even hears about, including nobody hears about us. But we're making this connection. So it's our responsibility, and I'm saying this to me as much as I'm saying it to anybody, it's our responsibility to be aware that the temptation to go to the chaos, to observe it, to participate in it, to be against it, to be for it, to question it, all that stuff is there. But our job is to keep, literally, the right word is keep the faith. Our job is to keep the vision, despite all appearances to the contrary. The fact of the matter is, this is a time of incredible, profound change. And you can call it whatever you want to. And if you started to call them at the age of Aquarius in 1967, that's as good a name as any. But the point is, we're here. We're not even the shock troops of the New Age. We are, whatever this New Age is, we're there. And by the way,
The Love Army.
yeah. And by the way, in the event that somebody picks up the notion from some establishment type that the New Age is a lot of hooey, doesn't make any difference what you call it. Things are different than they were 30 years ago. And they're going to be a lot different 5 years from now. And the way I look at it, I wake up every morning and I think, I've actually lived this long to see this. Is this cool or what? And if I keep living, and drinking enough coffee and having enough bad food that I'm not supposed to eat, and enough booze and all the rest of it, I'll probably live long enough to see the whole thing play out. It's great fun to be part of this.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's our job to carry it in our hearts and in our minds that this is actually, we're getting to see this. We're getting to see this. So that's what I want to say. The consciousness is, we're part of all sorts of consciousnesses. But the thing that we have to do is identify, we want to be the change we want to see, in spite of all evidence to the contrary. And it really can happen. Tell me I'm crazy.
Well, I believe that the reason that everything's coming up and we keep seeing, it's almost like something that has to bubble to the surface so it can be seen for what it is. And then when it comes out in the open, it's like revealing the dark side. You can't dissolve it until you know it's there. But it comes up so we can just see. Yes.
Right. Rather than setting a goal to stop it, set a goal to get through it.
Exactly.
Break on through the other
Because
side.
all it is all we have to do. All we have to do is recognize it for what it is, and then we're able to take it to the next point
Right.
that says we've passed through that. That isn't a part of our realization any longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has anybody here ever had, like I have, kind of a thought that it almost seems like the brighter the light becomes, the darker the darkness becomes. We're rising high on both sides, and I think we're going to get to that critical mass. Things are coming to a crescendo. And I think that the guys in the black hats are finally going to get enough throat, and they're just going to do it to themselves. And we're gonna be handing out the popcorn and going, woohoo! But it's fun, it's exciting. You mentioned the word fun, and I think that's great because spiritual growth, whatever else it may be, we can all come up with a whole bunch of words. There's an element of fun in there, an element of joy, excitement, and just juice. Juice.
Yeah. Juice.
And I think the lighter we become, the darker the dark seems. because we get more sensitive. And I know that I have a really hard time just looking at the dark stuff on the news, and I'm just not as desensitized to it as I used to be. You know, I
That is
used
a
to be
very
able
good
to.
point. Well, maybe that's what I'm perceiving, or, you know, my experiences. Very interesting.
That's my experience.
Oh boy, but I see the dark getting darker,
Well, and I do too, and
not just from perception, but what's happening.
yeah,
It's
I think
quite
you're right too.
crazy,
So I think
yeah.
it's both.
Yeah.
My experience is a little different from that, in that it seems like the more unconditional love is present, it's no longer confrontive, and therefore it becomes a mirror. And it makes it easier for other people to see what's working for them and what's not. Rather than having to defend their position, it's like light kind of just exposes what's not working. And also the concept of sustainability. And if what is being acted on or given is unsustainable, it won't sustain. And those practices that you mentioned is powerful. And if you look all through history, Russia, and all through history, all the great powerful Rome, that's not sustainable will not sustain, and it will self-implode.
And I think what you're talking about is we're healing ourselves so that we're not responding with the, when I respond to something in fear and anger, I know that I'm not the being of love and light that I think I am. And every time I respond to something with, concern or worry, I haven't surrendered as much as I think I have, And the more we get to those points, the less we respond with that fear and anger, So it kind of incorporates all of this.
That the physical stuff is simply a manifestation of what's going on in our brain.
Greg Braden's the same experiment as in the
Yeah.
quantum field and the unified field.
And Gene says, this is Gene Kiefer that wrote the Kundalini book here. Gene says that our brain is like a receiver. And the mind, the non-local mind, the mind, is a transmitter to our brain. And the universe is simply a mirror of what's going on inside of us. Now that sounds like New Age thought for sure, right? But it was Leibniz who said, and this was in the 1700s, what a man says about the universe oftentimes tells more about the man than it does about the universe. So these things, we're not dealing with stuff that just came in, over the transom in the last couple of minutes ago. This has been around for a while, but we're in the position where we can see these things. It's very, very exciting. So does anybody have an idea of something we'd like to see if we can